Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm very excited to have Int 80 from Dualcore joining me. I'd seen Dualcore over the years performing at different events. One of the first events, I believe, was an event hosted by Bugcrowd back in 2019. So this is the first time I saw you perform, then saw you, you performed also, I believe, at Nolacon this year, and then I believe, did you perform back in 2019? I'm trying to remember if you were one of the acts.
Actually, all
there.
The Nolacons. I am the only person, as far as I know, to be the only participant in Nolacon every single year who is not an organizer.
Oh, very cool. And so,
and was the Bugcrowd event 2019? Was that in San Francisco or was it in Canada?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
it was in San Francisco. Yeah,
it was a coin flip. Yeah, that one was at the Mint, right? Like the big building.
Yeah.
And it was part of, I think, maybe like an RSA side party.
Yes. Yeah, I was doing RSA. Yeah. And I remember one of also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, you may have played twice that week, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was a restaurant or with a club there that I think you played there. And then Lexi, the con artist, I think that's the first time I saw her perform.
Yeah. Probably the other show that you were at was Flashpoint, and that would have been with Lex, the Lexicon artist. And I think the venue was in like a sports bar. Fortunately, it was like our second time playing there, and the first time we almost had like a mishap where the venue was like, "Oh, you can use the sound system," and when we got there, it was like house speakers like up in the ceilings for like ambient music, and we're like, oh no, this doesn't work, we need to acquire actual sound equipment. And so we did acquire sound equipment and run the show correctly, and then the next year we were prepared and everything worked really well. But yeah, Lex the Lexicon artist is amazing. And RSA, we always have a bunch of parties. Some of them are like some after hours or like off the main drag of RSA, if you will. But it's always a blast to play out there.
That Mint, as you mentioned, that's a pretty cool venue.
Yeah, really unique. Interesting sound setup that I remember from that room, where normally when I'm on stage rapping, I want a speaker pointed back at me so that I can hear all of the sound. And I think in that particular setup, we actually pointed it outwards toward the crowd, just due to the dynamics of the room. Yeah,
and actually, if I get it correctly, I think the person DJing for you there at the Mint was DJ Fuzzy Nop.
Fuzzy Nop, yeah.
Fuzzy Nop, yeah.
Fuzzy Nop, yeah. Incredible DJ, long-time running partner, and doing a lot of real cool arts stuff still out in San Francisco and out on the West Coast. And yeah, just a really fun experience. Bugcrowd's always been like a really good partner in playing shows. Big fan of Casey John Ellis, and actually have a really cool photo and memory of DEF CON car hacking village one year, smashing a Tesla in the car hacking village and standing on top of the Tesla in a b-boy stance, posing for a photo with CJE.
Very cool. Yeah, it's really cool to see someone that's, actual hacker, understands the hacker community, that founded a company like that. So big fan of Casey.
Definitely.
So actually kind of what got me to San Francisco that year was B-Side San Francisco and RSA. I was a Bugcrowd ambassador, and they brought the ambassadors out there for B-Sides and RSA. So that's kind of why I was out there to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like Bugcrowd. Like, I remember early days of Bug Bounty, Bugcrowd and HackerOne were like the original platforms, and it was nice to see that people had this idea of like being able to facilitate and safely support hacking of targets that would improve security for everybody. At the time, I was working at one of the large FANG companies out west. and we had our own bug bounty program, and that was kind of novel at that point. But I still believe in it, that like overall the general benefit is that you are improving security for the average internet user who ideally should not have to worry about security.
Yeah, one of the couple of things I love about the bug bounty stuff too is the fact that people are able to get actual experience without risking getting in trouble, and then also the fact that what it's done for people globally that wouldn't have the opportunities otherwise. I mean, you see pictures of people that live in some of these very poor countries, and they're able to buy a car, be able to buy Macs, be able to provide for their family, have a nice home. So I really like the fact that they're able to provide that kind of opportunity globally, which most cases you'd have to live in one of the major countries to have those type of opportunities.
Yeah, and I love the approach that you can augment your resume, or actually build your resume to start your career if you want to work in that kind of like corporate structure. And so, people talk about like ideally or traditionally you would need to go to school for like a 4-year degree, something like a Bachelor of Science. But some of the best hackers I've worked with have never been to a university. And I think that like your bug bounty track record, your GitHub repos, blogs, presentations, all things that necessarily or don't necessarily cost you any money, whereas like university costs you a bunch of money, are all very strong evidence and a very strong signal for how you will perform in your career. And so I love that that's like a facility that's available to people, especially for folks like myself and others who may not perform as well in a traditional academic setting.
And one of the nice things too about that approach is you take a lot of the 4-year schools, they don't have a lot of hands-on stuff. So you take a lot of people that gone through, got the theory, learned some really good stuff, but they don't have the hands-on stuff. And unless they get an internship, they really don't get the hands-on experience. So that's another great thing about it.
Yeah, and I do see more universities modernizing, I'll say, like shifting towards getting some hands-on experience. Like if you look at programs like CCDC, right? Those are programs where like they're universities that are out there actually running effectively like real incidents. And to me, that's incredible hands-on experience that most people don't have an opportunity to do. Actually, where I went to high school, they have built a cybersecurity curriculum where they are doing more hands-on approaches, and I'm super excited to learn about that. And I got to talk with some of the students, and I had to be up front and say like to the teachers at first, like and the faculty, like BT dub steps. My perspective is that university is not necessarily for everyone, and so I'm not going to encourage the students to like funnel into university. And they said that's totally fine. We also agree not all of our students are going to fit the university mold, and some of them we train them for like certifications and early internships to like kind of kickstart their career and get them going and on paths that we think will make them more successful. But that overall understanding of just that, technology is a rapidly evolving domain, and trying to keep up with it or be on the bleeding edge of it, I think is really important.
Yeah, kind of mentioning some of the points you made there too. I think the universities are getting better about things because a lot of the curriculums were kind of older and outdated, and you're seeing more modern stuff. I mean, some of the students, can get access to learning AI now, which is, a lot of people that have been in it for a while are trying to play catch up and learn AI. So that's some of the cool opportunities they have. I got the opportunity a few weeks back. I went and spoke at the Pacific Hackers conference there in Mountain View. And the day before, one of our sales people took me over to set up a meeting to do a presentation for Stanford University. So I gave a career talk to some of the students there, and it's pretty amazing how sharp some of those students are. They were preparing they have like, along with like CCDC, now they've got national pen test competitions where they go in and perform pen tests as a team. And some of these students are finding O-days during the pen test and really writing up really nice reports. And so it's really amazing to see the possibilities of what you can learn. And Stanford University is pretty amazing, all the research facilities they have there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Stanford has long been a pipeline for feeding, incredible talent into a lot of technology companies. And um, if you want to be an academic institution that is part of that pipeline, you obviously need to be on the cutting edge and advancing the state of the art.
Yeah, before we get too far into the episode, I always have my guests share their hacker origin story. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your origin story, kind of how you got interested, got started, and what you're doing today.
Okay. Let's see. Really, my hacker origin story is that my first memory was I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like 2 or 3, and I was in my crib, and I was bored, and I threw all of my stuffed animals out of the crib, and I climbed up on the crib and jumped off onto the stuffed animals, and I threw them back in the crib, and I climbed back in, and I just kept doing that until my parents came in and told me to stop doing that. So jailbreak is my first hacking memory. That's my hacker origin story. But I don't like the narrative that like I've been hacking my whole life and that's why I'm a good hacker. I think that anybody can pick up hacking at any point in time because hacking is effectively just like creative problem solving and thinking about solutions to problems in a creative or fun or clever way. And so I think anybody can pick up hacking at any point, especially now with so much information available to us. I would say my technology hacking or hacking origin story is that I had AOL as my first internet service provider as a kid. And so we had dial-up modem, and I wasn't the best behaved kid, as you might extrapolate from the jailbreak memory recently. But anyways, I had this sub account on my parents' main account, and when I would get in trouble, my parents would take away my access. And so I taught myself how to program and hack AOL. And then I would write programs for hacking groups in exchange for like stolen accounts or phish. And so I basically just had this mass of stolen accounts that I could use to like stay online and keep access, being addicted to technology and being extremely online. And so that's effectively my hacker origin story.
Oh, very cool. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with our listeners kind of what type of work you do these days in cybersecurity.
Yeah, big fan of offensive security background. I've been a red teamer for a while. Also done a lot of cloud security work, and so I'm generally always thinking about like what is the way, like the most efficient way that I could cause the most damage and most catastrophe for my company or for a client. And so yeah, that just basically amounts to like, how do I destroy the business without destroying the business and without causing actual damage or disruption? And then like, how do I find those same types of problems at scale across the board in like a code base or disparate ecosystems and like foundationally fix those. So I try to think about things, even though I have like this offensive mindset where I'm breaking in all the time, or I'm trying to break in all the time, I should say. Sometimes it's really, really hard to break in. But I'm trying to think about both offense, defense, and then engineering as well. So that's kind of like the high level of, how I'm thinking about things and what I'm spending my day-to-day doing.
Yeah, as I kind of mentioned before we started recording, one of the things that inspired me to have you on was just some of the stories you were sharing on the panel at Nolacon when you all were sharing your physical pen testing stories, and just kind of hearing that, I knew I needed to have you on because I've had White Knight Labs on, and they shared one of their physical pen test stories. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to get you on here. But it's always fascinating to people, I think, because most people, I think, believe that the physical pen testing is always involved when it comes to pen testing, and little they realize that that's not always the case.
Yeah, I am actually I'm a lazy person, I'll say. I prefer the computer to do my work for me, and so I prefer to sit at home. I've definitely broken into some buildings. I can pick a lock. I maybe get somebody to open a door for me. If you want physical pen test stories that are like really, really cool, definitely have my wife on. Actually, her company is back behind me there, Hackety Inc.
Okay.
Have Marina on. She has incredible physical pen test stories. She walks through break-ins like it's nothing. The elevator moves and I get nervous. So, but yeah, I've had a number of like really fun physical pen test stories, and I do think that like there is something captivating about like having to be on site and being in the presence where you might get in trouble versus like armchair hacking and just sitting at a desk and knowing that you are miles or continents away from your target. But yeah, historically I'm lazy and I like the computer to do the work for me. So one of the things that was really funny to me getting into red teaming though was the fact that I'm actually just using like regular systems. Like really my curiosity about how just like operating systems work and how like just how to use Windows, how to use Linux, how to use Mac OS, that has served me much better than how to run tools in a Linux distribution that is like officially geared towards offensive security. So I love Kali. I think Parrot's an awesome distribution. Black Arch, Pen2, like all of those are really cool, right? And they definitely provide a lot of value. I use them when I play CTFs, but I don't think I've ever used any of those distributions on any red team operation in my entire career. It's literally just getting in, using the systems that are already there in place, and just moving around, moving through the environment. Everything is connected in a certain way. And so finding and traversing those paths is like really the key.
Yeah, I think people really overlook using Windows sometimes because, there's a lot of great administrative tools that you can use in a Windows environment that people don't think about.
Yeah. Also, fun fact for people who love/hate PowerShell. A few years ago, I think like during the pandemic, so maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, I learned that you can run PowerShell on Linux as well. And so every time I would need to do something in PowerShell, I'd be like, oh, let me boot my Windows VM. And then I was like, wait, I can run PowerShell in Linux. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool that they extend that to Linux. It's kind of interesting too, thinking in general back to using pen testing tools on Linux distributions, because, I remember some of my early memories of any kind of hacking tools were during my sysadmin career back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember a lot of tools being written for Windows, like Loft Crack and a lot of those tools are Windows-based tools. And then it seemed like once, Backtrack was about before Kali Linux, but then whatever the predecessor to that was, once the Linux tools started coming about, then you saw more of a migration that way, and people don't think about the Windows tools as much anymore.
Yeah, I disagree. I think people still think about the Windows tools a lot. There's a ton of Windows research that still comes out. I feel like I'm just fortunate enough to not have to operate in those environments anymore and not have to be aware of what the cutting edge of Linux or of what Windows is these days. I prefer to operate in an environment that's like a modern tech stack of like Mac OS and like Kubernetes and cloud.
Yeah. And for like web app pen testing, I prefer using a Mac because that's my OS of choice to begin with. I keep like a Kali Linux VM for some tools. If I don't want to install it on my Mac OS, then I've got that. But like Burp Suite, running it from within Mac OS and some of the other common tools in Map and some of the tools directly on Kali Linux, and then have a VM for the other tools that I don't want to install.
Oh, cool. I always do everything from a VPS. So like, if some upstream provider gets mad at me, like Cloudflare or Google says like, we don't like this traffic, they can shut down my VPS. I don't care.
Yeah.
but I don't get my home IP banned.
Yeah. I've done that as well too. Some of the companies I work for consulting, some of them had the infrastructure and they had like a cloud-based or a network, a little small network with all of our systems on it in the cloud hosted that we could gain access to, and like a proxy setup so we could VPN in and use a proxy to test with.
Yeah. And then when you do a physical pen test, or a physical red team, you can bring your own proxy and implant your own hardware and provide your own access.
So as far as like hardware stuff, what's some of your favorite hardware to use on engagements?
I haven't done a physical in a while, at least not since the pandemic. So my go-to back then was to just bring like an Intel NUC, which would usually fit behind pretty much anything that I needed to squirrel it behind. And then if I can share a story of using an Intel NUC, maybe
Sure.
that'd be fun. So had this red team where targeting and acquisition, looked them up. They're based in Austin, and I'm like, oh great, I live in Austin. They have like almost no internet presence. They make a security product, and I'm like, okay, there's doing all my regular recon, like my full contact recon. I'm not really finding anything to hit from like an external point of presence over the internet. So I'm like, I guess I can't be lazy. I actually have to get up out of my desk and go check these folks out. So I go downtown. The initial finding for their address is on like West 2nd Street. And it's at like a Tuesday night, and I'm walking around the building, and this person comes up to me and is like, hey, did you want to go inside this building? And I was like, oh, I have a startup, and I was just looking for office space. And really, I was like running Wiggle on my phone and seeing if I could identify, like confirm that there was an SSID that mapped to their company name to confirm that they were actually in the building. And so I was like, oh no. And I was like, oh my gosh, is this one of the people from the company? And I've like already got made like on my first night of just like walking out, like we're not even really starting the red team op yet. So anyways, the next day I go back and walk through the building, and they are definitely not there. It's just a random office building, but they are definitely not there. So I'm like, okay, where are they? So I go looking online, and I find, I think like the Texas Central Business Registry or something like that, and find out they're actually in a different building downtown at like, I don't know, Cesar Chavez in Congress or something like that. And it's a big building. It's like a Regency building that's 20 something floors. It's like I pull this place up on Google Maps, and I'm like I'm not walking through 20 some floors to go find this company, because they don't have like the suite number listed. They just have the street address. So I find a phone number for the facility, and I call them, and I say like, hi, I'm David from Amazon Prime corporate support. We have a return package for this company. Usually like when that happens, we're just missing the suite number. Can you tell me what suite they're in? And the facility says like, oh yeah, it's suite XYZ. So I'm like, all right, cool. Now I know that they are on this floor. It's like, they're like suite 2200. So I'm like, okay, they're on the 22nd floor. So then I go down there, and I go to the 22nd floor, and I'm walking around with Wiggle, and I can see that the signal strength is really strong outside these two different offices. So I'm like, okay, cool. They must be in like one of these two offices or both. So I sit down in this like kind of co-working area, and there's a cleaning crew that comes by. And the first round, somebody goes in and they vacuum and they come back out. And then, I think they do the trash. Sorry. The first round does the trash. Second round comes through, and then they vacuum. And so I'm like, okay, cool. I understand how like everything works. I'll just come back tomorrow. So come back the next day. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. I have ADHD, so I go on side quests. My bad. Side quest time. One of the offices had an adjacent office with the door unlocked, and I went into the unlocked door, and there was nobody in there. So I closed the door behind me, and I put a table up against the wall, and I stood up on the table and took the ceiling tiles off and looked up in the ceiling, and unfortunately the drywall went all the way up. So I was thinking like I could take off the ceiling tile, crawl over, drop down after everybody left, easy peasy. So anyways, second day I come back, and I'm sitting outside the other office, and first round comes through, and I pull up a Google image search on my laptop for like cute kitten images. And so the cleaning crew, when they came through, they were all speaking Spanish. And at that time, I was an adequate Spanish speaker. And so they came out of the office, and I asked in Spanish, like, hey, is anybody in there? And they said no. And I said, oh, cool. And I was like angling to show them my laptop screen with the cute kitten pictures. And I said, I work in this office, but I had a meeting downtown earlier, and I left my keys in the office. Can you let me in? And they said, oh yeah, no problem. And so they opened the door, and I went in. And I went in, and there's only furniture there. There's no equipment. And I was like, oh. So I came back out, and then just waited around a bit. And the first cleaning crews round went through, and I went by the other office, and there was still somebody in there. So I said, okay, I guess I will come back the next day. So I came back the third day, and the door just happened to be unlocked after the first round of cleaning crew. So I went into the second office and immediately sat down, popped open my laptop, and pretended to start working. second round came through, and I asked them, or they asked me, do you need vacuuming? And I said, nope, I'm good. And then I went through and like looted everything in the office. I found documents that had their Wi-Fi password. Is like the last thing I found. Like I went counterclockwise, or I went clockwise through the office, and like the last thing that I looked at had this like stack of papers, and on the back of one of the pages at the very end was this like thing. I was like, that looks like a password. And so I went to log in to the router. The router, that was definitely the admin password. It was also the Wi-Fi password. And then I plugged up an Intel NUC, getting back to like which technology to use for hardware drops. Plugged up the Intel NUC. That got us like our shell back out. Fun fact, when I was in the office, I found some DEF CON badges. And the DEF CON badges were from the year where they were the record that had had our music on the back side. And so I took this like selfie photo with like these DEF CON badges and like my own music on them. And then we like photoshopped a ski mask onto my face for the red team readout.
That's very cool.
But yeah, that particular red team really unfolded in a unique way, because from the point of presence on the router, we actually couldn't get to much. I think they were like VPNing into the network, and so basically like into like what their production network was. So just being on their like LAN didn't get us anything. And fortunately for the company, unfortunately for us as red teamers, they were very paranoid. Much longer story, but cutting short. We called them and tried to get them to run like a script as like a troubleshooting. So we were on the router. We were basically like QoSing, like throttling their traffic to cause like network issues. Then we called them from the help desk and said, hey, we're having like an Active Directory sync issue, and we need you to like run this sync script to like fix your network problems. And the person that we talked to was like very paranoid and would not go for it. And we saw them log into the router, and we'd put in our own DNS records to like redirect the DNS traffic to us. And we saw them log in, and we were like, oh no, the jig is up. And so they immediately like hung up the phone. They reported the incident. It was incredible. It was like actually the first time that we got caught in my time at that company on a red team op. And it became our first purple team operation. But it was like, it was a really unexpected turn of events. We thought for sure, like we would call this person. We had like all these details. We knew all the things about the whole situation. We had everything accounted for, except for the fact that they were extremely paranoid.
And so you said this was like a return customer.
This is like an acquisition for a company that I worked for.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. Very cool story. One of the things I wanted to get into, especially you kind of mentioned before we started recording, because I talked about the panel that you're on that was kind of interesting in the stories, but you did the keynote and you did a talk on career hacking. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of that advice, because we've got a lot of people that tune in that are trying to break in or trying to advance their career. So I think that would be very useful information.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So my general theme of life is that I need all the hackers I can get, right? I need creative problem solvers. I need people that think about things in different ways with diverse perspectives. And so getting started in your career is really challenging. Getting your first foot in the door is like, it can feel insurmountable at times. And there are a number of different approaches. And then like, even after you get your foot in the door, like how do you really step on the gas and go? So my general advice to folks is like really look for free things you can do to like build out your portfolio or your own resume. It's hard when you don't have experience, right? Like how do you bootstrap that process? So things that I think about like as a person who hires, as a person who interviews, I'm really interested in like folks' GitHub accounts. I'm interested like in your bug bounty. I'm interested in like any kind of credentials you can show me that shows you can apply the knowledge and do the work. Certifications to me don't really mean as much, especially when they're like knowledge based, where it's like, oh, all you have to do is like pass a multiple choice. Sure, I can memorize things. I think most people can. What I want to see is like your understanding of things. So like, show me what the work that you will perform is going to look like. And that can manifest in a number of ways. So, contributing to open source is a good one. Being like, having like a hack the box profile where you're like, I have like this number of first bloods, or I have completed, these boxes or something like that. Or doing, there's like Advent of Cyber that's starting on this annual recurring right on TryHackMe, doing Holiday Hackfest and submitting write-ups for that. Those are all ways that like those are free. They're free to play. Those are things that like you can use to like really show what the value of your work is going to be. And to me, that sets folks apart. Like anybody can take a test, anybody can memorize things, but can you actually do the work? That's the real question. So again, like focus on things that are going to help you grow, learn skills, and show the application of those skills. That's the like getting started part. And the like, once you get your foot in the door, how do I like step on the gas on my career trajectory, run up the ladder, make all the money, achieve whatever I want to achieve? There's a number of books and different techniques and tactics, but I really think that like figuring out what's really important and focusing on that is the key. I've heard it phrased as do less than obsess. And so figuring out what to say no to and what to say yes to is so crucial. Nobody cares if you work 80 hours a week to keep your inbox at 0. People will care if you work 40 hours a week and deliver the thing that makes the company 10x its revenue.
Very cool. Kind of back to that 80-20 kind of rule.
Oh man, I love 80-20, but like you don't have to explicitly call it 80-20. You can just kind of build it into like how you approach your work.
Yeah, it's a good way. And I think it's a more simple way to explain it, I think. So.
Yeah. I have a number of book recommendations. Great at Work is probably my top one for like individual performers who want to accelerate in their careers or like excel in their careers, not the spreadsheet and not the change of inertia. But I really like, as just a general book, Culture Code. It's about building like cohesive, high impact teams. And you have to have this like understanding of like vulnerability and trust in the culture and in your teams. And as somebody, like once you've gotten started in your career and you have the privilege to like have some more chance to discern like where you're going to find your best fit, that is so crucial to me. Like understanding like how the team works, how the organization works, what the like ecosystem looks like for a company. Because if you have like a dysfunctional ecosystem, even when you work with like really smart people, the delivery may not be there, right? But if you work with people that you can trust and you can be vulnerable around, you will all like grow and learn together, and it will be an amazing experience. So like I'm always thinking about like, how can I do my best work? I have limited time. I have to spend 40 hours or 50 hours a week at work. I have to spend some amount of hours sleeping. What am I going to do with those like 40 to 50 hours that I have to spend at work?
Yeah. Kind of speaking of, thinking work-life balance, what kind of things do you do to kind of avoid burnout? Because I do see you're mentioning, the not working 80 hours a week and kind of, trying to do the most in the least amount of time. So do you have any tips for anyone to try to avoid, getting burnout from the job?
Yeah, there's a number of different approaches that I've seen people incorporate, that I've incorporated. It really comes back to like understanding yourself and like how you function and how you work. There's a book that I read recently called Slow Productivity, which talks about different approaches outside of like a traditional structure of, 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. So incorporating some of those may fit for you. Really like finding your fit is the key. I personally like to optimize where I can. So as an example, I set my calendar like working hours for like 9 to 5, and it's basically blocked off outside of that. So you can schedule time inside of that for tasks where I know that I'm going to need some additional time to like debrief, for example, like doing an interview. I need to quickly format the notes of the interview, submit them in for the recruiter feedback, and then move on. I will block time on my calendar so that I can provide like the most effective and valuable feedback on that interview experience, as opposed to immediately going into the next potential meeting or next work item. So thinking about like how you can weaponize your calendar, weaponize things that you may consider to be weaknesses. Like, for example, I mentioned I have ADHD. Like if I can find a project that I'm very excited about and I know I will hyper focus on, I will like clear my calendar to make sure that I deliver on that project, and I'll be able to deliver on that project faster than I normally would, which then gets me back into like the normal flow of things. So another like, this is a really granular hack, but I think it works for everybody. People will try to schedule meetings for like 25 minutes instead of 30 minutes, or 50 minutes or 55 minutes instead of 1 hour. But what happens is they schedule that meeting to start like on the hour or on the 30-minute mark, and then it always runs the full time. So I schedule all of my meetings to start 5 minutes after. So instead of starting at like 1 p.m., I'll start at 1:05 and end at 1:30. And that it's a forcing function that the meeting will only be 25 minutes because other people will then, everyone has to leave at 1:30. So that's like a really granular like tactic that you can use as well. My whole life is hacks. Like I am dog science. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's just hacks on hacks on hacks.
That's pretty cool. You should write a book.
No, you should never write a book. Writing a book seems like such a massive undertaking.
So yeah, this is some pretty interesting tips. Kind of great to hear your ways of optimizing your work. Are you leveraging any kind of AI or generative AI in your, red teaming or anything just for personal productivity?
Yeah, anywhere that I feel comfortable enough to accurately gauge the output, I will definitely use Gen AI. So I'll be like, I need a paragraph, or I need 3 paragraphs about this thing, or I really like the book Smart Brevity, and I like the formatting of how data is presented through that book. And so I will, create a persona for the AI and say, you are an editor for Smart Brevity. Please write things in like, do this task for me, where like I know what the output should look like. I can tell like if it's accurate or inaccurate, but it saves me that toil, right? And then I can leverage that. What I think about in terms of AI for like red teaming, for example, is more of quickly generating and testing like actual inputs and outputs. So I see a lot of like AI for red teaming is like you take OSINT and you feed it into an LLM, and it will like ask it to enhance the OSINT. Or you take your like Nmap port scan results and you feed it into the LLM and you say, cool, I have 10,000 hosts. Here's like Nmap input. Tell me what I should go look at now. And sure, that can be helpful. But like really the way I'm thinking about AI for red teaming is like I build something that asks an LLM to be like a red team operator, and it generates a bunch of TTPs for me across like every step of the MITRE bingo card, right? Like for every single technique and tactic, build out like what TTPs look like for that in this kind of environment. Now, do the same thing on the blue team side. What does a detection look like for these like TTPs? And so then run those against like an environment, have like a sandboxed environment, and run those. What worked? What didn't work? And so for every like offensive TTP, if it succeeded, like signal that. And on the blue team side, on the defensive side, like, did you have a detection that caught that offensive TTP? And if not, like, how can you catch that? Write a new detection that catches that, right? And so to me, that's a way that I think we can synthesize a lot of like foundational detections that should at least eliminate low-hanging fruit, catch like low sophistication adversaries. And then from there, you just like refine and make them like more robust, right? And maybe that also leverages Gen AI in some way. But we're not even to that point yet of like, how do we build those like foundational detections in a programmatic way through some kind of like agentic workflow? So I want to see that first. Like that's like to me my first like real milestone, and then going from there to like, okay, how do I like automatically refine those? I will say I have used LLMs in a way where I anticipate, like I get into an environment and I think like I anticipate they might have detections that do this. how can I do this same objective that I want to do without firing an alert from the detection that I think works this way? And so that's been really helpful as well. It's saved me time in like, for example, like uncovering syscalls that I didn't know about, or suggesting like different approaches that I wouldn't have initially thought of, that I would have gotten to eventually, but it saved me 30 minutes of testing or something like that.
Very cool. Yeah, it's one of the things I think that gets overlooked a lot of times is what can be done on the blue team side with AI and generative AI.
Yeah. I am super lazy, right? I want the computer to do the work for me. So I'm like, the computer can crank out detections 1,000,000 times faster than I can, or more, like over 9,000 times faster. So have the computer do that, right? And you should have, as a red team operator, you should have some understanding of where that detection, that output will be like flimsy, where it can use improvement. Same as a detection engineer, you should understand like how your adversaries are going to get around and bypass your detections that you compose. So I think equally, red team, blue team should be able to use these kinds of capabilities in a way to optimize or at least accelerate their productivity, for some kind of like force multiplier where you can, at bare minimum, reduce toil, and ideally do more beyond that. At least get like a better security posture, get more detections in place that are like higher signal and better value.
Very cool. So we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't discuss your music career. So if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing about your music career and kind of the type of music you do.
Yeah, I hack computers and make rap music about it. My main group that most people might know of would be Dualcore. I am one half of Dualcore. The other half is C64. He is the producer, does all of the beats, all the mixing, all of the artwork, effectively has all of the talent in Dualcore, and I just have the mustache and do the rapping. I'm also in a group with a friend of mine, Michael Kill, who is he currently is a contractor for Cisco and has been for several years. In North Carolina, he and I have a group called the Troubleshooters, and same like nerdy hip hop. We rap about technology and hacking in video games and programming. And I've been doing it for a while now. I'm not that old, but these gray hairs are like lots of rap shows. Our first Dualcore album came out in 2007. That was the first year that I played at DEF CON. And I feel like every gray hair is like 75 rap shows at this point. So pretty much through my entire career, I have just maintained this like schedule of going to work on Monday, and then Friday or Saturday, I'll like fly out and play shows over the weekend. Sunday or Monday, I'll come back home and go back to work.
Very cool. So what got you interested? I mean, how did you have like a music background from school? Did you play any kind of instruments or anything? So what got you interested?
Oh, wild question. I grew up listening to rap music. I think I was like 6, and the first rap song I heard was, am I allowed to swear on the podcast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The first rap song I heard was Fuck the Police by NWA. Okay. But I was 6 years old. I had no understanding of the societal context around it. Just that they were saying bad words, and I thought that was hilarious. And I liked the sound of the music. So I grew up listening to rap music, and I never considered myself a rapper. But this person that I used to hack with on AOL as a kid, he and I would talk about hip hop all the time, who our favorite rappers were, who we thought was like a better rapper. By the way, like, hip hop artists are very opinionated and borderline argumentative. If you ever ask me about hip hop and you get an answer that seems like kind of edgy, I apologize. That is just like, I'm used to talking with rappers and we are like opinionated about things. It's okay for other rappers to be wrong. I'm usually right. But anyways, one day, this person I used to hack with on AOL, he sent me an email with this rap verse that he had written about how he was a better hacker and programmer than I was. And then he replied and said, like, you need to write a response to this. Like, you should write a rap verse back. And I was like, why? Like, I'm a better hacker than you are. I don't need to respond to your rap verse. So anyways, he kept pestering me enough to the point where I finally wrote a rap verse, and that was my first ever rap verse I wrote. It was like a battle rap verse about how I was a better hacker and programmer than this other person. And then after that, I was really interested in freestyling. So I did like a lot of freestyle battle stuff. Used to like freestyle with friends a lot, and then started writing music and writing songs and trying to understand like how music actually works, as opposed to just kind of making it up as I go along. But really, my entire life is just hacks on hacks on hacks. So I still truly don't understand how music works. I just try to make something that sounds like something I would like to listen to in the future.
You do a great job of it. So
thanks. It has been a wild and unexpected ride. I was very surprised that we were able to finish an album, just because it's an undertaking. And I thought like I wouldn't be good enough to make an album, lots of imposter syndrome. And then I remember going to play my first Dualcore show. My friend in the car with me, we were listening to the album, and he asked, how much are you selling this for? And I said, like, none. If anybody wants a copy, I will just give them a copy. And he was like, oh no, you have to sell this. It's actually good. And so that actually got us selling CDs. Originally, I didn't think anybody would care about it, so I was just planning to give it away if anybody had any interest in it.
Very cool. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
I need all the hackers I can get. Please, learn how to hack and stay free. Don't go to jail. Also, be good to each other. The world is not a great place all the time, and we need each other to be good to each other. I need diverse perspectives. I need people from all walks of life to come hack and to think about how things work. If you're not sure about being a hacker, you belong here. Trust me. All of us belong here. Be good. Be amazing. It's your trip on the planet. There's so much cool stuff to learn and do. That is my request. That is my call to action for you. Find something that you're excited about and go solve those problems. It doesn't have to be technology even. If you are I love microbiology. I thought if I didn't get a job doing computer stuff because I was writing computer viruses, I want to understand microbiology and pathogens and stuff. Anything. If you are excited about it, be yourself, be awesome, and be good to the people around you.
Great advice. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join me today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor. I was such a
Likewise.
fan on the internet for a long time, and then I saw you at Texas Cyber Summit, and I was like, oh my God, it's Phillip Wylie.
Likewise. And it's the same thing for me. It's I'd seen you before, and there's a lot of people that get bugged all the time. I never approached you because I thought, man, people are always bugging this guy. And when you came up and introduced yourself to me, it was a huge honor. So
if you see me, anybody on the internet, if you see me, please come say hi. My name's David, a regular person. I do laundry. I do the dishes. I take the trash out like a regular person the rest of us. I just like computers.
Yeah. And super approachable.
But yeah, thank you so much for having me. And everybody out there, please hack the planet, stay free.
And hack all the things.
Hack all the things.
Thank you for listening to The Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.